And that's us. We are live, and this is Saturday night, and you are listening to the Paranormal Portal. And I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I'm thrilled you're here with us. And of course, being Saturday night, let me please welcome to the show my good friend and co-host, Mr. Don Longbeard.
Hey, hola, good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever that may be.
Well, it's all of the above,
All of
depending
the
on where you are. But this is the Portal, and we are back, and we're thrilled to be here bringing you our form of entertainment week after week, which just makes Don chuckle because he knows exactly what that means, and I know what it means too. But we do our best, ladies and gentlemen, and we hope that you're at least mildly entertained. These shows are live and unscripted, and usually just winging it, but it's something that we definitely love doing, and in fact, being a paranormal show, it would behoove me not to mention the passing of an icon. Art Bell passed away this on Friday the 13th, I guess.
Yeah, yesterday.
And that's, of course, it's quite a blow because he cut the ground that we're standing on. He blazed the trail that we're appearing in. I mean, this wouldn't be happening without the contributions of him and Coast to Coast and just making it happen. And what would have normally been the toilet schedule for any show, he made it work and excelled at it. And he brought the paranormal into everyday conversation. And of course, we definitely tip our hats to Mr. Art Bell and thank you, sir, for all that you did and have done and all that you shaped in your wake. And on a personal note, I got some really tragic news today, and it's a hard thing to discuss. It's tough because after a long battle, my father passed away today, and it's something that you know it's coming. You know that it's going to happen. You know that it's an inevitability. But when that phone call happened, it's just like you go blank. You can't prep for it. You can't brace for it. It's just like someone knocked the wind out of you. And my father was a good man. He was a strong man. He was a very proud man. And he had a life of adversity, but he fought through and scraped a living and took care of a family just on sheer will alone. The man would work 2 and 3, 4 jobs at a time to keep everything going, and it was hard to watch him go the way he did. And I'd talked about it briefly on the show a couple of times in the past about his. He essentially had hardening of the lungs, and it was something there's really no coming back from. And I certainly love you a bunch, Dad, and thank you. So that was today. But like I said, it's not like it wasn't expected.
Everybody sends their love, Brent.
Oh, thank you. And that means the world. And I thought about not doing the show, but this is one of those things that I do, that I need to do, that I love doing. And I just I needed to be here and to carry on because that's what he would have done. So he never didn't take care of his responsibilities. And this for me is a labor of love, and maybe I just needed your guys' love. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Introduce our guest. We'll take over.
Why don't you introduce our guest?
All right. Well, last minute, we got one of our favorite friends on tonight. He wants to be talking about UFOs and alien visitations. We brought on Mr. Nese. Everybody's familiar with him. Nese, how are you, bud?
I'm doing well. Bonjour Nin, Nese Indigenicas Ojibwem, Kevin Richard Shores Indigenicaj, Shaganashi Moog, Makwa Nindun Dame, Gawababi Ganikag and Dunjuba, Minawa, Moorhead, Minnesota, Nungu Minde, Nindogichi Da, Makwa Nindun Dame. I am not gone. You are not gone. We are not gone. We are all here. Here, if you need/want, we are like the wind that hugs you, like the chill that goes to your bones, like the tears of joy and sadness. We continue every moment, whether we are here or there. And as long as we are not forgotten, we shall continue on. So thank you, sir, for allowing us to be here with your son, where you've done a fine job in what I know of you. So thank you for letting me be here tonight, gentlemen.
You're very welcome, and thank you for that also. So, how you doing, bud?
Well, northern Minnesota, where one moment you're like spring is here, but then it's not, and you get that nice bite of the cold northern tundra.
Yep.
So, yeah, we're still here.
Good.
We're still here even after what went on with the 13th Friday.
Right.
A little bit of fireworks, ironically, in
Yeah.
Syria.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So
Yep.
things in the sky.
Yep. Things in the sky. Scary things too, unfortunate but true. So,
Well, the nice thing about all of the things in the sky is I like to believe that possibly some of the things that were higher in the skies than what was going on in Syria were either getting together with another group and saying, oh, that's right, you don't speak alien. But they were saying, come on, give those humans a break. They'll figure things out.
no doubt.
Or there's that other group that's going, aga booga digga digga. And that means, no, we need to annihilate them. They're like a virus. And then there's that third group that's, that's saying, we'll take them. They taste like chicken.
Is it any wonder we want you on the show all the time?
Oh, jeez.
But yeah, UFOs have been a favorite of mine since a child,
Right.
since a wee little child, because I do believe, and I'll probably share, a few of the unusual sightings that I've had in the sky, being in the military in the United States Navy in the middle of nowhere in the ocean.
Yeah, definitely.
We've seen some incredible things up there where you're just like, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know what to say, and I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to be crazy.
It's it's a phenomenon that's we've done shows on this before, and there are those people that would like to say that this is something that is some form of spin-off from pop culture in the terms of the old B movies and the aliens ate my brain, or the brain eaters from Mars, or any number of old B movies from the 50s. And there are those people that like to say, well, that basically put the idea into our psyche, into our common psyche, and these are just manifestations of that. But any person that's researched the phenomena can find that this goes back pre-biblical times. You can see instances of people speaking of lights in the sky in as long as people have been recording some form of history. And into the 1800s, I think it was Thomas Jefferson actually submitted the first official UFO official UFO claim in the new nation known as the United States of America. So this is not just a a spin-off of pop culture on our psyche. This is something that goes so much further back, and it's not a new phenomenon by any measure.
Well, even if you look at some of the the paintings of yesteryear, you can see some of these where they'll show like a fireball in the sky, and they'll show like individuals within the fireball, like sitting in a sphere like contraption thing. And this is, I want to say back into like, like 1,000, 1,100,
right.
In these paintings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so this has been something that's been going on for a long time, and of course there are those that would say that this phenomena has not only been present but has been actively involved in the shaping of what we understand to be our modern societies, in the ancient alien astronaut ideas that several researchers have. What do you think of that idea that not only were they here, but they were actively helping, and
Exactly.
especially in the Native American tribes? I think it's the what tribe is it that says they're the star people?
The Navajo.
Navajo. Is that? What do you think of that, Nese?
Well, the one thing that I enjoy so much, that I take self-pride in, is when I introduce myself in the language of my ancestors, the Ojibwe by the French and the Chippewa by the English. But in our language, it's Anishinaabe.
Mm-hmm.
And if you break down the etymology of the word, the breakdown of the syllables and its, easiest meaning, it breaks down in when the species or the entities were lowered to the earth. Now, if that sounds familiar, think of the syllables Anishinaabe, and then think of ancient Sumer, where they talk about the Anunnaki, Anishinaabe.
Yeah. Right.
And then if you look up the etymology of the Anunnaki, it means when the man was brought down to the earth.
Really? Okay. Wow.
And so, and my ancestors, when you ask them, and I've done this before, I went up to elders and I've said, what about extraterrestrials? And they would be like, what about them?
They're all around us.
Yeah. And it'd be like, well, what about them? And they're like, well, what about them? And I tried to look it up before I got on the show, but I have a challenge looking for things nowadays. But I couldn't remember the word, the Anishinaabe word we have for sky sled, because a mode of transportation that we utilized were sleds, like toboggans, like dog sleds.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a word for a sled that traverses the sky. Uh-huh. And so we have these other teachings where some are under the belief that the Sasquatch, or we call them the wilderness people, Bigfoot, that they are interdimensional or possibly extraterrestrial. But we talk about many, a lot of times when you think of the alien, right away we kind of think of that classic gray alien, the UFO of Roswell, excuse me. And I think that's the furthest thing from the truth. I think there's probably hundreds and thousands of different type of entities that have a intelligence to them that we couldn't even comprehend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as many stars as there are out there, there's, and like you said, it's hard to know exactly where they come from. But I would say that, having experienced the phenomena personally, I always had an open mind prior to that, but having experienced it and seen it with my own eyes was really mind-numbing, but amazing. It was an incredible thing, and I don't know, it was just it's one thing to have a space in your belief system for something to exist, and another to experience it and know that it exists. It was such a profound experience, but I kind of forgot where I was going with this school of thought, but it was incredible. Help me out here, Don.
I'm sorry, I'm catching up on on the chat room. I totally missed that.
Okay.
Love you,
But
Brent.
you know, where I was coming around with it with my ancestors and asking elders about it and stuff like that, I've asked them, well, where do we come from? You know,
Right.
where do our people come from? And we've been told three different things. Some believe that we are the remnants of the Atlanteans.
Okay.
Hmm.
When Atlantis went under, we came to the East Coast and also up into Scotland in that area with the Druids. And then there are others that think we're the lost tribes of Israel,
Right.
you know, but then there's the others that go along with we came from the heavens. And there's a star circle, a circle of stars up in the sky, and the elders will point to this circle and say, that's where we came from.
Wow. Now, do you know what this constellation is?
No, not at all.
Okay. So it's not
Not
just
at
like
all.
the old Pleiades or kind of thing, which is Orion's belt, I think, isn't it? Isn't the
No, but we do, yeah, we do include the Pleiades and Ceres and all of these other, you know, the Seven Sisters are part of the whole sky beings and the entities. You know, if you look at a lot of the indigenous tribes, there's many different tales of entities coming down from the heavens
Mhm.
and actually mingling with the females. Those
Oh.
stories are also in the Native American things. But the first time I witnessed things or witnessed something of this nature is it wasn't even remembered until I was probably about 35, maybe 40 years old. And it may have been from the Art Bell show or Ian Punnett. I don't know if you remember Ian Punnett off of KSTP in St. Paul,
I don't know.
Minnesota.
No.
But they were talking about in the 70s, there was this period of when a majority of all of the UFOs were being seen siphoning water or
Right.
dropping hoses
Right.
down into lakes.
Oh.
And when we were kids, and there was a little what is it called? A little circle. You know, when a street comes to cul-de-sac.
Okay.
Excuse me. So we had a cul-de-sac up the hill, and beyond the cul-de-sac was all grass and a pond. And one day, all of us kids were there playing in this cul-de-sac because, you know, all the parents, because no cars came in and out there because there was no houses there. And so the parents would always let all of us kids play there. And there was probably about like 10 of us there playing. And one of the little girls started screaming. And then she was looking towards the pond with this like crazy look on her face. And then all of a sudden the other kids looked that way. And then all I remember is looking at the pond and thinking like a fish was jumping out of the water. And then all of a sudden I remember all of us kids are running away. And we're running to my parents. And my parents, I got so bad that at night they used to have to walk me up there to the cul-de-sac at sunset and they'd be like, see, there's nothing there. Everything's cool. But then 40 years later, when I heard this about these UFOs being sighted over waters, I had a total flashback of this thing that I saw in the water was some kind of craft that was like dropping some like tube thing into the water.
Wow.
And I've actually thought about doing this reverse hypnosis.
Oh, sure, regression.
But right? But
Yeah.
I'm afraid to open up those closet doors.
What else might be in
Something
there?
special might come out.
Oh dear God. Well, you know, I think it would be worth doing though, because especially if it would, you know, shine some light on what you saw or what you experienced. I know that having childhood memories it can be very subjective. So it would be neat to see if that would remain the same vision with the regression.
Well, I've actually thought about a couple times get a hold of those kids, because I'm still in contact with these people that were there, and then just ask them if they remember the same thing that I did, or at least something to kind of verify of the occurrence of it happening, But as you were saying, like, time and time again in history, they talk about these things happening, and as you were saying, with the billions of stars that are there, the numbers are just too great to really be. I don't know if it's ego or what it would be to be like, no, there's only us here.
Right. Yeah.
But what about the challenge that Christians are having, and I guess other religions too, where they're under the belief that if there are aliens, they must be demons.
Oh, yeah. And that's, I have trouble with that mode of thinking anyway, because it's the old, if whatever's going on doesn't fit in my paradigm, it must be evil.
Right.
It's the old, what is that in the field? I don't know. Let's shoot it kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's such a backwards kind of thinking. And I mean, if in that terms people are, Christian, and so therefore they derive their inspiration and spirituality from a Bible. Well, the Bible is written very specifically for a very specific set of circumstances. I don't think it was ever meant to be an exhaustive compendium of the nature of reality. It's it was just, this is the best way to behave. Now be nice. It's you wouldn't explain quantum physics to a kindergartner, after you just handed them a box of crayons. So, I mean, at the times that those things are written, it was a much simpler time. And I think that, as we progress and as we learn, our awareness is also expanded, I hope, and that we're actually becoming something more than what we were. But sometimes you have to wonder when you just, pay attention to any of the news. But, you know what I mean? It's like anybody that has that narrow a paradigm, I don't know that there's any hope for someone like that anyway, as far as expanding your consciousness and opening up your mind to other possibilities. Because apparently they like their four walls. They like their ceilings and their floors where they expect them to be. And anytime anything would stress that or push that out of their comfort zone, it becomes Satan.
Right. Right. Yep.
So, just my 2 cents.
Well, now you got me questioning either I should take away my kids' crayons or stop teaching them about quantum physics.
Keep going on the quantum physics, I think. Just keep going.
But, the interesting thing with the Christians, and if you look in the Bible, one of my favorite part of the Bible is Ezekiel. If you read Ezekiel and actually if you put, and this might upset a lot of people, but if you go into the Bible and you'll notice they talk about God and they talk about the Lord. Mm-hmm. And if you go through the Bible and all the times where they mention God or the Lord, more so the God, and if you replace it with extraterrestrial, it almost makes more sense and more plausible.
Right.
And nothing sounds more to me as an extraterrestrial when they say when Jesus returns, he's going to come from the heavens and all shall witness him.
Yeah. Well,
so if he's going to be broadcasted live on YouTube or Facebook Live,
right,
then yeah, everybody's going to see him come.
Well, there you have it. But it's certainly a can of worms to try to figure out what working with paradigms is a tough thing in any regard. And I guess we all probably have our paradigms. There's some things that I can be completely open about, and there's other things that I really struggle with, and it's because it's not in my paradigm. So I get it that people have their own comfort zones and what they're able to process and what they're not. But I think that if they're listening to this channel, if they're listening to this show, they must have at least an open mind for the possibility of UFOs and extraterrestrials.
Definitely that.
At least I hope so. Otherwise, we really screwed up on our scheduling tonight. But we're about but we're just about 20 seconds out of the break, Nese, so we're going to pick it up again when we come back. When we come back, I have a listener letter I want to share with you guys, too. I meant to open the show with it, but I just, after talking about Art Bell and my dad, I just kind of couldn't talk anymore. So I'm going to read it after the break when we come back. So, but don't go away, ladies and gentlemen. We're just going to take a couple minutes here for paying the bills and running the ads, and we'll be right back after these messages. welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Paranormal Portal, and I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Very thrilled you guys are here with us tonight, and of course it's Saturday night, so let me again welcome my co-host on Saturday nights, Mr. Don Longbeard.
Hey all, how are you?
And we hope you're enjoying the journey so far. Tonight we're talking with our special guest, Nese, Mr. Kevin Shores, who is here to discuss UFO phenomena and any alien visitation. But before we get back to that discussion, I want to take this moment to, first of all, thank the listener. And this is from Octavia, or Shadows, in the YouTube chat, had sent in this story. So I want to read that to you guys right now, because it's pretty cool. So let me get to that. It's, again, it's small font. I don't know how to blow the Edge browser up to make it bigger. Let me see if I can figure that out quick.
Yeah, right
this
there.
is really... Yeah,
See,
there it is.
there it
Boom.
Here, I'll do it for you. Mecca like a high, Mecca hiney ho.
Oh my goodness.
That's Pee Wee Herman. Pee Wee's Playhouse. I remember that. All right, let me get to this letter. So it says, it starts out, goes, "Hello, Don, and I didn't catch his name." That would be me. I'm Brent. But this is Shadows or Octavia, whichever you'd like. I've had many paranormal experiences from my childhood, as well as experiences in lucid dreaming and astral projection, if you'd consider these topics paranormal. And yeah, I would. I don't think that they necessarily are... I don't think that they're not
Separate,
normal or not natural. And I think a lot of times we look at the paranormal as unnatural or above natural or whatever. I think that lucid dreaming and astral projection are paranormal, but in the sense that a lot of people don't realize how to do such things and never tap into that. But anyway, I'll continue here. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify that. Though I've never had anything too malevolent happen to me, some rather strange things have happened. I suppose I'll start with one of the most profound. Yeah, see, I grew up in a trailer park where a lot of us kids had paranormal experiences, but it was never really a focus of our lives. My house in particular, with the negative energy from my father's alcoholism and the abuse of his wife, was, for lack of better words, a hotspot for paranormal activity. Yeah, that is. You're right, that's like a beacon. The first thing I'd like to tell you happened when I was in high school. I'm sure you've heard of orbs before. Mostly they're seen in photographs and tend to be completely ethereal, invisible to the naked eye. However, one day I came home and couldn't go into my house. Not that I wasn't physically able to, but just I didn't want to mess with that thing. I had 2 doors to enter my house, and one of these things was floating above each of them. I found it to be a very unique experience because it wasn't your cliche scary thing in the dark. This happened outside in broad daylight. 2 large black orbs just floating there. It didn't seem to care that I was there, but rather focused on doing whatever it was doing. They were there for about an hour, broad freaking daylight, and they dropped smaller orbs from their mass, which fell through the ground, ceasing to exist, and that was it. After an hour, they were just gone all of a sudden, and that was the last I ever saw of them. As I said, I have many stories like this, so if you'd like to hear more, don't be shy. We'd love to hear more, and that was a fantastic story, and I have to tell you, I've witnessed orbs with my naked eye on a couple occasions, and I'm a firm believer in them. However, this is the very first time I've ever heard anybody reference black orbs, so that's very unique to your experience, and I'd love to hear more of what you've experienced as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you for sending it in, and please feel free to continue. I'd love to carry more of your stories on the show. So without further ado, Mr. Nese, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you again for having me. Did you know that Donald Trump has, I guess, psychic abilities?
Right.
Uh-oh.
Is this a joke? I'm waiting for the punchline. What's going on?
Yeah, he's a professional asshole projectionist.
Oh God! See, I knew he was going to go somewhere.
This is a family show. It's a family
It's
show.
going somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, moving along, back to the
Yeah,
UFOs and alien visitation. So Where did we leave it? I forgot where we were at.
Well, he talked about Ezekiel and the wheel in the sky.
Okay. And so,
Well, that was where I was going with it, and
Yeah.
I was kind of leading in there with the Christians, because
Right.
in Ezekiel, if you do read it, and you, as Donnie just said, with the wheels within wheels,
Right.
it sounds like very, very good metaphors for UFOs.
yeah, I would agree, and I see it in a lot of Renaissance paintings as well that used religious symbology. They also seem to have a proliferation of saucer or craft
Right.
appearing in the sky and behind the main subjects. Like I think there's one of Mary and the baby Jesus, and,
Right.
and in the background there looks like somebody in a I don't know, just like a Jetsons car almost. It's really an odd inclusion, and so it would seem that this phenomena, like I said at the lead into the show, has been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
So, is it your opinion that they have been instrumental in shaping our knowledge of things like architecture and perhaps the Great Pyramids and other ancient structures like Pumapunku and several other that seem to defy logical, traditional scientific understandings of what our history was?
Oh, absolutely, because I do believe it's his story,
Right.
the written by the victors
Uh-huh.
on it. But with these monolithic sites around the world, and how a lot of them, and I think you helped me once with the show when we were talking about the snake mounds of the Ohio River Valley.
Right.
Yeah.
Where these effigies are only able to be witnessed from great heights. In Peru, the lines, geez, I just gapped the lines.
The Nazca lines?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
So even just in this, and the fact that these pyramid structures around the world, with the amount of energy needed, especially if you think of manual labor as a form of energy to create these monolithic structures, you probably need some kind of greater outside force in order to get these things done, because today we can't even figure out how they did some of these monolithic sites.
Yeah, and when we had Brooks Agnew on the show, he mentioned a few of those examples as well, and he talked about the Great Pyramids. That it was clear to him when he was over in Egypt that the Great Pyramids had existed long before the other pyramids were built, and the other pyramids seem to have been cheap
Right.
cheap
Knockoffs.
attempts.
Imitations.
Imitations, yeah, thank you. That they weren't, they had never held up near as well, and their alignment wasn't right, and so wherever or whomever put up these Great Pyramids had what would be suggested as a very superior knowledge of not only architecture but also about alignments with star systems that are quite distant, and what could have been their motivations, I don't know. I've heard many ideas that perhaps they were great batteries to generate power, or great power plants, and the Great Pyramid was some form of it was somehow used with different substances, like I believe acid, to possibly generate current, which could have been used to charge some, perhaps a starship or something. I don't know.
A battery. It's a battery backup.
Right. And then you see the hieroglyphs that would suggest there were light bulbs. Yeah, those snakes in the jar, and they've found those Babylonian batteries in Iraq that were just as old as around the time of the pyramids, and they had made rudimentary batteries. And so the knowledge has been around a lot longer than we've been aware of it. And then someone like Tesla comes along, and Edison, and they revolutionize our world with basically the reintroduction of a lot of these concepts.
Well, I would not be surprised at all that Tesla had the key to all of it, with his claims of, I mean, making, he claimed to make a super weapon, a weapon that kind of is based on or Halo. The game of Halo is kind of based on they could put a big ring around the Earth and it ignite this ring and it would make nighttime be daytime.
Oh.
And then he also, when they asked him, where'd you come up with this technology? He said it more than once he thought he was getting
messages.
Not channeling, but messages.
Yeah, directly
from
into his brain.
Extraterrestrials.
Yep.
Right. That's right. I think I had heard that long ago and it just got lost in the ethers in my head somewhere. But now that you say that, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it's very interesting. So, the presence of these influences seems to be ongoing. Now, do you have a hypothesis for why would they have been so actively involved in the shaping of this world? And if indeed they are still here, and I believe they are, that, they're either still visiting or they never left, but why did they suddenly take a spectator role rather than, continue to be involved?
Yeah, why did they leave us orphans?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, my theory or my assumption would be that just as we have here in this universe or on our planet, we have these groups of people, whether it's the United Nations or the global powers. I call them the powers that should not be.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It's funny, just as a side note, I've heard more and more people using that now, and I believe you coined that term, so it's kind of interesting how that's spread.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've heard it on other podcasts, on other networks and stuff, so it's interesting.
Well, I guess we could probably dig up back shows of when we've talked, because I think I've been using that term now for probably about 5-6 years.
Yeah, exactly. But I have heard it again. But anyway, continue on. I'm sorry.
But with all of these conglomerates of people or entities, they're all jockeying for power, and there's always a bigger fish in the sea. Mm-hmm. So somehow there is either a group of entities, and I'm not just saying humans, that right. There is a group of entities that are literally controlling this globe, this Earth that we're on. And like in that episode 1 of Star Wars, when they showed that blockade on the planet of Naboo,
right.
They had all of those little satellite spheres in a grid form or a pattern around the planet. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely believe that the same grid is around us, and we are not allowed to leave this Earth without permission from a higher power. Wow. And whether or not this higher power is, on the Earth and then in our solar system and then in our universe, there's always a bigger fish in the sea. And so I think there is actual agreements and wars, because if you look back in the history too of UFOs and stuff, you'll see, I think it was in the early to mid 90s when a lot of people were claiming they were witnessing battles in the stars, where people were taking night vision goggles and they were putting them on and they were literally claiming to see in battles.
Really?
Which is, I think it was either in the early 90s or in 97.
Wow.
In that time period. And look at how quickly we are to jump to war.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so why would it be that inconceivable? Because just as we have good humans and bad humans, so should be aliens, good aliens or bad aliens. In other countries, they eat cockroaches. There's no problem with it. It's not a big deal. They eat insects and bugs. And here in America, we're like, oh my God, that's so disgusting. But if we were raised from birth,
right.
that it's no big deal to eat a bug, then, So what if these entities were raised with not the same kind of ideology of compassion, that we have?
You mean we are food?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
That is.
interesting.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's it. I was just saying that's very interesting. That's a good point.
Well, I always like my worst scenario.
Mm-hmm.
My worst scenario theory is that this Nibiru, Planet X, Wormwood, Blue Kachina, Red Dragon, yada yada yada. One thing or another, that this ship is actually a huge transport that goes from the Pleiades and to Sirius. And here in Earth, we're a mid stop. And when they come back, they stop by here. We're like a big, huge galactic Walmart.
We're Galactic 7-Eleven, yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And hopefully we're not a food source.
All right, everybody, we're going to stop at Earth and we're going to grab big gulps and a leg of dog.
Right. But have you heard?
Long shanks.
But have you heard in the history of the Earth where there's claims that there are entire settlements that seemingly just vanished of people?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I forget the name of the settlement of some of the first settlers to this continent.
Roanoke.
Roanoke. Yep, that's right. Yep.
Jamestown. Yep.
Yep. So that just suddenly disappeared without a trace, and very strange. And there is, I guess, anything's possible. I mean, we have an awful lot of hubris for any one species to believe that we're so much far above and removed from all of that. But, I think it was Michio Kaku who said, you have to think about, aliens could be thousands or millions of years advanced from where we're at.
Right.
And he said, you don't go down a road and acknowledge your presence to every anthill you pass. And, how could that be different from a civilization that's millions of years advanced looking at us?
They don't even look at us.
Yeah. It's just, maybe try not to mash the hill, but that's about it.
And as we go by, you'll notice Earth. Nothing interesting there.
Nothing to see here.
Dumping the gas on the red ants.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or with their big magnifying glasses burning off our feelers.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
So, whatever the case is, their presence, I would say, for me, it's a foregone conclusion that they are here. What do you think, if it's not for, let's say it's not for food, that they're not stopping by to fill up on man burgers or manwiches? What are they doing here?
Well, and then you can go into the other theory of like Zachariah Stitchin in his Earth Chronicles, where he talks about the Anunnaki, or kind of like the Nephilim, that they created us, that they gave us a little DNA boost or a jump, and it kind of gave us the missing link was the extraterrestrials giving a little extra intellect or something. Geez, what is his name? Protege of Jordan Maxwell,
Lloyd Pye,
from England, not David Icke.
Oh, no, I don't
know. Angels and Aliens is one of his videos, but in it I like his proclamation of how at one time we as silly humans, our brains were all one big lump. And then that the extraterrestrials, when they manipulated us, they separated our brains and made the two hemispheres.
Oh.
And there's literally a thin membrane down the middle of our brain that separates us. And ironically enough, the publicists jumped on this so quickly. All of a sudden people are like, oh, he's left-brained or he's right-brained. Where more so that was like a publicist thing and not total scientific fact and stuff. But imagine, with our technology that we have today, especially as a veteran and seeing all of these advancements with prosthetics with people now. I mean, if you're able to transverse across the universe just like in that movie Men in Black,
Mm-hmm.
where that one and where Will Smith's character pushes the guy's ear, and the guy's whole face plate
Oh, yeah.
like opens up and goes to the side,
Yeah.
and there's a little 4-inch guy sitting in a chair with total mechanics and everything, and he's driving the body.
Yeah, well, that's funny because on the show when we've covered the UFO or alien visitation phenomena before, we would, read encounter stories. And one encounter story came out of Malaysia, and it was these kids playing out in the jungle, and they noticed these little, 4 to 6 inch tall creatures came down in a little ship and landed, and being about 8 or 9 year old kids, what do? Well, you think you just found a new action figure, so they went to pick them up.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And apparently they got zapped a few times,
They
and the
fought
kids,
'em off.
the kids ran away screaming. But it's quite possible that there could be very diminutive sizes, and that could be evolutionary, as if they're as advanced that they could tune their physical shape to not need as much as far as maintenance and calories and whatever have you. I suppose it'd be a more efficient build, with all things considered, that if you're going to travel across the stars, if you're smaller, you don't use up as much resources.
Right.
So that's very cool, though. But that is a claim out of Malaysia that these kids found these little 4 to 6 inch tall figures that had landed in a little ship, and were trying to hook up some equipment, and they tried to pick them up.
My absolute favorite from memory of UFO videos is the Carlos Diaz plasma machine or plasma ship.
Uh-huh.
And it's incredible where it's in Mexico, somewhere out of Mexico City. And this Carlos Diaz, he's in his dining room and he's speaking in Spanish, and they got the subtitles, and the room is filled with a bunch of people. And on his table, they show a video camera plus the other camera that's videotaping it. And he goes, okay, I feel them coming soon. I'm going to go outside, and they should be coming in a little bit. So they shut the lights off, and they're in there by the dining room, and all these people are looking outside, and you can see outside that it's nighttime, and you can see the cars driving by way in the distance where there's a road. Mm-hmm. And you can hear a couple dogs barking here and there. And then you see Carlos goes out there with a flashlight, and he's walking around in his backyard, and he's kind of going back and forth and further away from the window, and then he stops. And then all of a sudden his light goes up, or his flashlight goes out, and then all of a sudden, an instant later, this huge like plasma orb just shows up. And you hear all of the people in the house just like gasping and speaking in Spanish. And then all of a sudden you hear roosters crowing and dogs barking. And the thing is there for like 3, maybe 4 minutes. And then it just vanishes. Wow. And you hear all the people like yelling and screaming and cheering and stuff. And it is one of the most incredible favorite UFO videos that I ever remember witnessing.
What was the name of it again?
It was the Carlos Diaz. I think it was Dias, and it was called the Plasma Ship.
Okay, I'm gonna look that up later for sure.
But another favorite one was there was this guy in Vancouver, Canada, and he worked at a TV station affiliate.
We're about literally a minute and a half out of break. So is this a story you can get through then, or do you want to hold it till after break?
Oh, we can hold off a little bit.
Yeah, I just thought rather than interrupt and try to get back into the rhythm, I do want to hear that. But this plasma ship is really interesting. So it looked like a glowing big huge ball.
Well, no, it looked more like Close Encounters of the Third Kind,
okay.
But more brilliant.
Okay.
That the light was so brilliant that it kind of all fuzzed together, and is that wasn't a good descriptive. It like all the colors kind of blended together, so it looked more of light than it did like of a structure.
Wow, that would be really cool.
Right?
I'm going to have to look that video up because that sounds incredibly compelling. And ladies and gentlemen, the call-in board is open tonight. You can call in, and it's 213-233-3998. Again, 213-233-3998 or 833-TFR-LIVE is the toll-free number.
There you go.
833-TFR-LIVE. If you're in the UK and you want to call in, it's 44203-393-2871. Again, 44203-393-2871. So we're going to take our hour break here, ladies and gentlemen. So don't go away, and we'll be back for the second hour of our show tonight here on the Paranormal Portal.
And more Donnie.
Hi everyone, it's Chris Gio here, founder.
Play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, dripping scars across my heart. Raging anger pours inside me as their lies keep falling apart. Just make sure that you're well fed.
This looks extraordinarily bad.
They linger in a perpetual dream state, a nightmare from which they cannot wake. I can't see you, Mommy. Where are you? I've never sensed anything like it. Caroline is not like those she's with. They're attracted to the one thing about her that is different from themselves. Her life force. It is very strong. It gives off its own illumination. It is a light that implies life and memory of love and home and earthly pleasures. Something they desperately desire, but can't have anymore. Right now, she's the closest thing to that.
Poltergeists are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances are of fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
But the show must go on, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are in hour number 2 here on the Paranormal Portal, and I hope you're having a great night. Hope you're enjoying the show, and thank you all for being here. Thank you for all your support and kindness during this tough time. It's personally a tough time, but, you know, it's one of the reasons I had to be here. I just had to, had to feel that energy and feel that, you know, that caring and kindness, because when things like this happen, you just feel so cold and dark, and, you know, and it's just, I don't know, you just need the support of great people, and thank you all for giving that to me. It means the world, and you know, like I said, it wasn't unexpected that it happened, but it's still, you just can never really brace and prepare for something like that. It just happens. So love you all bunches, and I truly mean that. It means the world to me, and thank you so much for being here and being a part of the show, not only tonight but every night. You guys have made this an amazing experience, and I certainly feel nothing short of honored just to be able to do this week after week, and to know you guys are there and paying attention. That means the world. And I know Don feels the same way.
Yes, absolutely. You know, because, you know, it's you guys who keep us coming back. And as Brent said, you know, sometimes getting in here and doing what we love to do is the cathartic thing to do. So, you know, yeah, we definitely appreciate you.
It is. And without further ado, welcome back, Mr. Nese. Kevin Shores is here with us tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We're discussing the extraterrestrial UFO phenomena here on the portal tonight. And I thank you for being here, Nese. You've been a dear friend of mine for a long time, and I certainly am thrilled that you're here as well tonight, because, you know, being surrounded by those people that you love and care about is important. And so thank you for coming, and thank you for doing it on such short notice. I was thrilled that you were able to step up and be here tonight, because I've always loved it when you're on the show, and you always bring a great energy to the show that definitely people respond to, and I always get great feedback after you were on. So thanks again, brother.
Well, love to love you, baby.
Well, it's that love that keeps us going, man. But yeah, it really is awesome. So, but you were saying about the second story. Now, you talked about the one video you watched, and what's the second one you were going to discuss?
Another one of my favorite ones, and I've been, like I said before, I've been into UFOs for a long time, and I really started getting into it in 1994, when I was involved with the American Gulf War Veterans Association, and trying to research Gulf War illness, because it was such an obscure thing that the only place that I found any reference to Gulf War illness was on the same shelf of secret societies and Bigfoot and paranormal phenomenon and UFOs.
Yeah.
And so I started listening to Art Bell and started getting DVDs and different stuff. And I went into a little VHS place, and the guy asked me why I was in a wheelchair, and I told him I had Gulf War illness, and we started complaining about the government together. And he said, I got a couple of videos for you. and it started up a 2-year relationship where I would go in there and give this guy $30 and 6 blank VHSs, and I now am sitting on over 1,000 VHS tapes of just this, that, and the other thing, and you name it. But one of these videotapes is this gentleman in Vancouver. He worked for a television satellite station, I guess you could say, and it was a relay station. So they had all of these satellite dishes on it. And he asked the boss, hey, can I borrow a couple of these satellites that aren't being used? And the boss was like, sure. And so he would set these dishes to the International Space Station. And supposedly they had channels. NASA had these channels of broadcasting videos and audio. And this guy would record. He'd go to work and he'd hit record, and he'd record it 24 hours, and then he'd go back and review it. Well, out of all of these tapes he got, there's like 6 or 7 clips where it shows literally, my favorite one is they showed 2 astronauts on a yard arm, and they're working on something, and it has to do with this shuttlecraft. And all of a sudden, one of the astronauts says something like, oh, there's another one. And the other guy's like, oh, yeah, where? He's like, on your 2 o'clock. And then he's like, well, tell me if it's getting closer or something like that. And then all of a sudden you hear mission control. They go, mission control to so-and-so, go vector. Mm-hmm. And allegedly the term vector
means to move off it.
It means to shut up.
Yep.
It means shut up. You're on the live feed right now. You know, but then he also has these other videos where they show all of the stars, not the same video feeds that we get to see from NASA. The regular ones we get to see, everything is blackened out. But in these other video clips, you see all the stars, and you see it's just speckled with stars. And you see this one star all of a sudden moving across the screen, and then from the Earth you see a flash and an instantaneous object heading towards the first object.
Yeah.
And the first object takes a 90-degree turn and heads right out of there.
Yep. Yeah, I remember seeing that. And that is a phenomenal piece of footage. And of course, there's so many people trying to debunk that with claims of it being ice, and the particle was blasted by a thruster engine and stuff. And it's like, no, you know, that's a pretty big stretch. But I've seen the footage you're talking about, and I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's just like pie plates for eyes, because it was very, very profound. And I mean, anybody could watch that footage and see exactly what was going on. You know, I mean, a child could see that, look, there's something moving, and then it gets shot at, you know. So, and there are the speculations that the Star Wars defense system that Reagan was, you know, always talking about setting up, is that the first example of us seeing that used, and, you know, clearly not effectively, but whatever they shot, you know, if you look at the scale of space, whatever they shot, it must have been almost like a railgun kind of thing, because it's moving way, way, way supersonic, way, way, way past the, you know, times 12 the speed of sound or whatever, because it covers so much distance in just a blink of an eye.
Oh yeah, it definitely wasn't conventional. And this is one of the challenges too, because when I was in the Navy and I was on a ship in the middle of nowhere, and we had satellites and we had radar dishes, and we utilized all of the different spectrum of frequency for transmission. So we were basically using smartphone technology. We were using internet technology, where we were on computers and we were talking to people around the world and sending and receiving information. You know, and this is back in the 80s. And when I was going to vocational rehabilitation in the mid 90s, and I'm sitting before these computers, and I'm like going, oh my God, this isn't even as advanced as what we were using. And then when cell phones came out, I mean, the first thing I thought of was Star Trek. If you remember him with his communicator,
Right.
you know.
The flip
but then
phones,
when you broke it apart of how it worked, it's just a glorified walkie-talkie. But instead of just sending simple audio, it's sending data. And to really anger you guys, do you know how much it costs to send 1 gig of data?
I don't know.
Under 50 cents.
Oh, I can believe that. Yeah, I'm sure that people are getting just bent over the barrel every month by these companies. There's just no question that. I was just watching a video about that today, as a matter of fact, and that's certainly not on topic. But the cost of cell phone towers and stuff diminishes over time, and yet people never see that diminishing bill. In fact, they said from 10 years ago, the average cell phone bill is up like 100%. So it should be getting cheaper, but.
Well, where it ties in all together. If our technology is so advanced to where we don't have to use this jet propulsion in order to transverse the universe, and we can utilize Tesla technology and electromagnetic technology, so why would they not want us to go beyond the Earth? Well, then this goes back to the early joke at the beginning of the show. Is there a big universal group or committee that is saying, look, you silly humans, you still aren't getting it?
Yeah.
And if you guys would just get it when Wormwood or Nibiru or Planet X or whatever comes around, we'll nudge it out of the way and we'll let you guys continue on.
Right.
But if you don't get it, we're just going to let it pass by close again and see what it does.
Yeah, and unfortunately, if we're being measured by on a global scale, then it seems like we'll always fail because we got idiots making the choices for us that keep getting elected. And unfortunately, like I was saying yesterday, I was all set to do the show, and I started, in the midday, I started hearing about this Syria thing or late in the day, and it was just like somebody kicked me in the chest. It was just like, my God, is this the best we can expect? That, clearly this is not validated fact, and yet now the best we can hope is that we'll lob missiles into some other country at some point just because there's an agenda. So as a global society, it's going to take a lot for us to ever move beyond that, and honestly, I think it would honestly take the skies opening up and motherships coming down and going, okay, here's the drill. It's this time now, and you all need to get on this time. Because left to our own devices, there's just, I don't know, we just can't communicate. We just can't seem to communicate.
Cue Jane's Addiction, and we make great pets.
We make great pets.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been thinking about that song all night already.
Yeah.
Well, I would have to beg to differ on one point of your statement.
Oh, sure, please
that if we critically look at all of the perspectives of this existence that we're living in, and we look at the children, and I've said this many times, that these children around the world go through these horrific ordeals from molestation to war to poverty, not going to bed with a full belly or not even having proper clothes. Yet all of those horrible conditions they're going through, somehow these kids always find how to giggle and how to laugh.
Amen. And you know what? You're right, and that's a good point. There is bright spots shining through, and it's great that there are, because my God, I need them just to remember how to smile some days. It's just so heavy. But Let me get to this call. I've left her on hold for a far long time, and I forgot all about it. So I do apologize, but Diane Swiger, you're on the air. You and your tank treads are welcome. She said she's got, I saw her in the chat. She said she's got tank treads on her monster truck. So you're on the air, man.
Yeah, that's my song. I don't break for zombies. I wrote that recently. I'm gonna have to, at some point we'll talk about that. But paranormal songs. There you go. Brett, hugs, honey. You know he's still around. He still hears you, and you just talk to him. He'll probably see him. He'll visit.
I'm hoping so.
Your dad.
Yeah.
My dad died of emphysema, so I know how hard it is with the lung thing.
Yeah.
So, okay, and you, brother, what nation? I didn't hear what nation.
In our language, we go by Anishinaabe. The French called us Ojibwe, and the English called us Chippewa.
Chippewa.
Oh, see, I'm Cherokee on my mom's side. So, anyway, I am so glad to hear you talking about this because, First Nation, they know about the star people and everything. Yeah. They know about spirits, they know about star people. Usually, a lot of times the elders talk about it and not other people too much because we find out that we can't talk about it with everybody. But, if you want to know something about that, the First Nations know stuff about that. And they got legends all the way back. It's not, do you agree, sir?
Oh,
this
absolutely.
Is not unknown.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always made this statement, where would we be? And this is what ifs. And sometimes, I understand it's hypothetical, but just imagine if the dominant society would have melded with the Native Americans instead of wiped them out, where would we be today with those teachings?
Right.
Because the simplest teaching is
Right.
the Native Americans, they got their status within the community by what they gave back to the community. And this is absolutely backwards compared to the American society where the ideology is, how big is my bank account? How big is my home, my cars, my 2.5 kids, and my white picket fence?
Very true.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The whole different idea of, I had better plan things so that 7 generations down the road they're all right. How's this going to affect 7 generations down the road? How's this going to affect the future? And they don't think that way here. And I'm sorry, I missed your name. I would rather call you by your name. Could you say your name again?
Oh, I go by the name Nese. Nese. My Christian given name was Kevin Richard Shores, but I don't remember that moment. But Pavlov's dog, I'll jump at the name. But it's a couple syllables.
Okay, Nese.
It's a couple syllables to my full name. As indigenous people, we believe that our names is our power. And so you don't give out your full name to people. You just give them
your
a little
real name,
tidbit.
Yeah.
And the first 2 syllables of my name is Nese. And so that's what I prefer to go by.
I just wanted to call you something,
Hey, you.
Just don't call me late for dinner.
So, but yeah, it's, I get that. And I also get, it's like there's so many things. Oh, geez. It's almost like people make things so hard for themselves, It's like people make things much scarier and bigger and more complicated than they really need to, when actually some things are already known, but they just don't believe. This is the thing that really annoys me, is how we seem to, in this society, be encouraged to take everybody else's history as just a parable or a myth, when actually it's history. And we could learn something from it, but we can't be allowed to do that because we're told this is only mythology and it doesn't have any credence and it doesn't have any credibility. And the problem with that is there are people that have been paying attention a lot longer, and the Native Americans are one of those societies that have, and India is another. The legends from India, where with the flying craft, the Vimana, the wars in heaven, we do have history that is being treated like it's fantasy, and yet we keep finding bits and pieces of information to suggest that this is all real, and that this stuff did happen. I mean, they did find nuclear fallout in a place where supposedly something happened, according to Hindu. What is it?
Yeah. The Vedas?
The Vedas or something.
Yeah, the Vedas, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the Upanishads or something told a story about it. So it's like, come on now. And we've got to be, we almost got to be our own detectives, because it's almost like we're being constantly told to be stupid or something. Everybody but this scenario is wrong. So anyway, I really appreciate that you're coming on and you're helping us out here, helping us all out. Can you tell us any particular, I don't know. No, I better not ask that. I was gonna, no. But do you have, what's your favorite story what's your favorite star person story?
My favorite, let's see, since one of my favorite sites is Devil's Tower in Wyoming.
Yeah.
From that that movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And if you remember in the movie when they were talking about, figuring out the tones and what they had to do with, they figured out it had to do with the location. And then they typed in the location, and on the screen it shows Devil's Tower. But if you actually take that location number on the screen and type it into Google Earth, it'll show you the Colorado-Denver airport.
Oh, really?
However, the story of Devil's Tower is that there was these 7 beautiful sisters, and the 7 sisters were just highly liked, and everybody, they sang, and they were just a beautiful group of sisters that loved each other, and high regards to these sisters. And one day a spirit wanted them and shape-shifted into a giant bear and came after them. And the sisters knew they didn't have a chance, and so they stood there and started singing their death song. And the creator, the sky beings, had pity on the girls, and they pulled the earth up to the sky. And this is what created Devil's Tower. And the giant bear spirit was clawing at the edges of it. And then that's how it got those kind of straight lines up and down the sides of Devil's Tower. And then in the end, for fear of these sisters being killed, they took them and put them up into the heavens. And then we have the seven sister stars.
The Pleiades, the 7 sisters, yeah.
Right.
That's an interesting story.
That is.
Yeah, that must have been a pretty big bear, huh?
Well, if you look at some of these newer theories that are coming out, there are some people that are making the proclamation that Devil's Tower
is
the stump of an ancient tree.
Of a giant mystery.
Yes.
And who cut down? You know what? That's my next video that's coming out. I'm doing a video on mud fossils.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I am going to do. I'm just about to release that, put that one up. Is mud fossils? There are places even weirder than that.
Oh, I bet.
Looking at some of them, I mean, there's one called Womb Cave that even has like a cervix, and the outside looks just like you'd expect too.
Diane?
You can actually walk in it.
We're going to be heading a break here in
different
just a
stuff.
couple seconds. So
Keep that thought.
If you want to just stay on the line, go ahead and we'll continue on the other side of the break. But we are going to take another break, ladies and gentlemen, the last break of the night. So don't go away, and we'll continue with more of the Paranormal Portal in just a couple minutes. So get a break, get a drink, run to the loo, and we'll meet you back here in just a minute or two.
Oh, that rhymed.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the last half hour of our show tonight here on the Paranormal Portal. And, of course, Don and I are here manning the ship, and we are joined tonight by Mr. Nese, Kevin Shores, who is going through the portal with us tonight, discussing all things extraterrestrial and UFO. And right now we're being joined by Diane Swiger on the phone, longtime listener and supporter of the show. And thanks for calling in. And I do have another call after you, though, so I do want to get to the next call before the end of the show. But I'll just give you a couple minutes to wrap up whatever's going on.
Okay. He's giving me the warning because he knows I can talk a while. But anyway, yeah, I'm talking about mud fossils. I am going to have a video out on that, so please, shameless plug for my channel and my video. And on Brent's show, hope you don't mind, darling.
I'm absolutely happy with that.
I love you,
I know.
But anyway, I do want to say mud fossils. I am looking at them, and it turns out actually I have probably a chunk of somebody's spine.
Oh.
But yeah, mud fossils are basically means if you look at it, there's a mud fossil university, and there are all kinds of people showing lots of evidence that when you really look at this stuff, there were giants, and I mean some of them with a face the size of a mountainside.
Oh wow!
So basically, I mean there's a cave called Womb Cave that has everything. I mean there are various things like that. I mean, so these they're saying, well, these veins, like a vein of gold, is was really a vein. I mean, you can tell because people have broken open stones and had blood in them. Oh. And I mean, just everything. I mean, it's a very weird subject now. And now I can't hardly look at a mountainside or anything, or a hunk of rock that I have without wondering, was this a body part? And some of these fossils are as big as a mountain. So how, it means probably the legends are true about not just giants, but titans. Yeah. And probably the reason that, half the planet is watery is because that was the half that's now in the asteroid belt. Oh. So, and so I mentioned that. So anyway, thank you so much, Nese, for coming on. Oh, and thank you so much, Brent, for having me on for a moment here.
It's always a pleasure.
And thank you, Don, for the moonshine, all the moonshine in your basement. Oh, sorry, you wasn't supposed to mention that.
All right.
Yeah, that was a secret.
I think I drank about half of it now.
That's medicinal.
Sorry, you got to make some more, dude. It was good stuff.
Yeah, medicinal purposes only.
All right, Diane, thank you for calling in.
I was feeling sick, Okay, bye-bye.
All right, good night.
Love you, bye-bye.
Love you, too.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, yeah, I suppose just let you talk once in a while, too, eh, Nese? Go ahead.
We forgot you were there, buddy.
I'm just sitting back listening. Everything's good here.
All right. Well, let's get to our next caller. This is area code 214. You're on the air.
Yeah, this is Brent.
Great name.
I go by Muska.
Muska?
Much like Nese.
Okay.
Yeah, I grew up and was able to name myself. Can you hear me okay?
We can, yep. Hearing you great. I love your name, by the way. I'm a Brent as well.
Yes, I'm the Brent that called you many moons ago.
I thought so. I thought that was familiar. Great to hear from you again, sir.
Yeah, good to hear you, and listening to you all. I think we're all on the right path here on this station tonight. A lot to explore, a lot we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to get this out. It's just something that's come upon me in the form of prophecy, and relating it to Syria. I've been wondering, why are they so adamant about getting rid of Assad and the Syrian government? And I think it relates back to the prophecy in the Bible about Damascus disappeared in a day, and I think they have to fulfill that prophecy in order to move on, and irregardless of what people think, they went ahead with their agenda, and it requires them to unload all their obsolete weapons onto Syria and keep coming back in a larger and larger force to do that. Do you see what I mean there? But so that brought a question to my mind. Well, I can fulfill the prophecy to make Damascus disappear in a day myself. Just bear with me here.
Sure.
All we'd have to do is rename it.
Oh, yeah.
We just rename it.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
then Damascus will be gone, and that'll fulfill their prophecy. They won't have to have the destruction, but I doubt if they'll fall for that. But, I think that's what all this is about. I just have that feeling. I may be wrong. I'm just calling in to express that. It's just an epiphany I had.
Mushka, I'm sorry, Brent.
Go ahead. No, please go ahead. You're the guest.
Thanks for calling in, Mushka. It's interesting that you said that, because the first thing that I thought about when I was noticing the focus on Syria, if you follow the progression of where we've had these wars, it seems like it was a cover-up for a knowledge grab. Because you look into the ancient jungles of Vietnam, and in those area you find these ancient temples. And you look at what happened when we went in the latest Iraqi war, when the Baghdad Museum was robbed of all of those cuneiform tablets. There was millions of dollars worth of gold and gems and other treasuries, antiquities, yet they went straight in and went straight to the cuneiform scrolls and dipped out of there. And then in the big, huge crisis in Egypt, same thing occurred. They go into the Egyptian museum and take out all these things. Ancient Iraq is Sumer. Then you get up into the mountains, Afghanistan and Pakistan, and then you start getting into Syria. We're talking about ancient peoples. So my question is always, what type of knowledge are they digging for?
Well, they are after the museums, and they are after all the ancient relics, and they're after that knowledge. Yes, I agree there.
But if
that's one of the first things they go for.
Yeah. If I may interject, it seems like they always go for that stuff that we value, the knowledge that we value, but they're not there for the knowledge. They're there to get rid of it. And I believe that's a lot of it, because, all the spoils go to the victor, which means they also get to write your history and rewrite your history. And I think that's more of what it is.
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah, but my train of thought here is, why such tenaciousness in the face of the fact that we know we have evidence that does not have anything to do with those poison canisters? We got pictures of them. They come from Germany. They were all sent in there by the exact ones that are attacking them right now, and claiming that they are the ones that are doing it to their own people, when in fact it's us. And then we go attack them, and everybody in the has knowledge of this right now. That's in the thread. So
possibly,
to me, it's this prophecy thing about Damascus has to fall in one day, and they're trying to make that come about in an artificial means, and it's not coming from God; it's coming from man. And I want to make that perfectly clear to everybody, that this is not some Christian prophecy that's being fulfilled by a Yahweh God. It's the prophecy being fulfilled by some very, very sinister characters that probably date back to Egypt and their family traditions coming all the way through. It's a group of people that we can't even identify yet, but they're the ones that hold the true power in the form of actual might for whatever they think is right. And so I'd say, hey, you want me to make Damascus disappear in a day? Well, rename it.
That's a very good solution, yeah. if that's what has to be done, that sounds like a deal to me. I'm good with it being having a new name and just being done. Absolutely.
But then they would not be able to make their Philosopher's Stones.
Well, look what they could make now. I mean, it's just pathetic.
But it takes many souls to power a Philosopher's Stone.
Here's my advice right now. Stay alive and learn the best you can and do what you can. Even if it's buy a non-GMO product, I don't care. Whatever you can do, let's help keep moving this forward in spite of the fact that Trump has been taken over, or whatever. We knew that coming in with Trump. We made some headway.
Yeah. Yeah, there was some bright spots there. I don't try to ever get too political on the show because, I don't pretend to know enough to be political. But I've always been of the opinion, as I've heard many other people, it's like, I just want our president to succeed. It's, whoever you voted for is one thing, but he's been elected. So, just hopefully he can succeed and do well by all of us. And certainly I was hopeful that maybe he was of maybe a different mold than most of the other ones, but that seems to be fading fast in light of recent events. But, I guess you never know. But
if there was any other proof that there are extraterrestrial entities, I mean, the guy is orange. He's so orange that I can see it.
Yeah.
Giant among men. He's a giant among men. The giants were somewhat like the communists. They interbreeded with the populations in order to have characters that look like the population to take over the rule.
Well,
and they did the same thing genetically.
If I could prophesize right here and now, and this is it, I can absolutely 100% guarantee you that it will be exactly as it was.
It seems to be, because it seems to be the same people are making...
It'll be exactly as it was.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
It will be exactly as it was. I'm speaking in future tense.
That nothing will change is what you're saying.
That's the only guarantee.
So that's past tense. Okay.
But
listen,
with the
better.
dichotomy of order and chaos, even in the whole scientific denotation, it works a million times, and then that chaotic time happens and it doesn't work. So it's all relative in theory.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm in the 7,000 year cycle concept right now, and I feel that it's crumbling, and they can't realize that this is actually their end and their cycle is ending. I may be wrong, but all the evidence that I'm accruing shows an acceleration in their demise, and they just can't believe it, and they're just going according to the playbook as they always have, and they're trusting in it, and it's falling apart on them, I believe. And everything they do, it's beyond my control. I just pity them and I pray for their souls. And I believe that this time it's going to be a surprise, and it's going to be our turn to have a 7,000 year cycle, and we can make this a brighter and beautiful and more perfect world.
Well, I hope you're right, sir. I thank you so much for calling in and being a part of the show. It's always wonderful to hear from you. Thank you for reaching out again. I just am thrilled.
Thank you for taking me.
Anytime, brother.
It was Mushka, right? Mashka or Mushka?
Yeah, Mushka. My name is Brent. Yeah, we'll see you later, buddy.
All right. Miigwech. Apegish bimadazi wewen.
Yeah, bye, Nese.
Very cool. It's always cool. It's fun to hear from callers that I haven't heard from for a long time, because I always wonder, are they still out there, or did they find something else to do? But I'm glad he's still out there, and I'm hoping you guys will always still be out there too. So, but we're burning through the night here. We got about just over 10 minutes left of the show. Can you believe it?
Phew. Yeah, it goes quick, really quick.
It does. Nese, how you doing, brother?
How about I'm doing just fine. Thank you. Thank you. But my favorite UFO experience.
Yes.
1995, June 21st. I just got fired. Well, it was kind of a mutual breaking of a partnership. I was working in a salon in Dinkytown, right out of Minneapolis.
Sure.
And got in an argument with the owner of the salon, and I walked out. And a friend of mine called. Well, I called a friend of mine, and she came and picked me up in her car, and we drove up to the North Shore. She's like, "What do you want to do?" And I'm like, "I want to get out of town." And so we started driving north up to Duluth, and we got to Duluth, and we were like, "Well, let's go up to Gooseberry, and let's go up to Split Rock, and then it's like, let's go up to Grand Marais." And so we kept heading up further and further, and all of a sudden it's about like 10, 11 o'clock or something near there, and I'm like, let's go to the border of Canada. And so we go to the border of Canada, and we're thinking there's going to be a gift shop or something there, at least on the Canada side, and we're going to get a souvenir or something and go back. But everything was closed. And then we're like, let's go up to Thunder Bay. And so we're going up to Thunder Bay, and the major highway is detoured for reconstruction. And so we had to take this divided highway, old logging highway, and we're taking this all the way to Thunder Bay. We get there, grab a couple postcards and stuff, and head back. And on the way back, I'm driving, and she had one of those little Spectrums, I think they were called, and low to the ground 2-seater. And I'm looking up between the steering wheel and the windshield to the top right corner, and I see an orange ball or a sphere in the sky. And she's like, "What are you looking at?" And I'm like, "There's something up there." And she looks, and she's like, "Oh my God." And I pull over to the side of the road, and then I roll down the side of the window, and I stick my head out the window. By this time, the thing is huge in the sky, and it looks like it's coming closer to us. And I don't know why, all of a sudden I reach and I grab the headlights, and I'm turning them off and on. And my friend starts screaming at me, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I want them to know we're here." And then she said, "No." And she started freaking out. And then I freaked out. And then the minute the fear came over me, this orange orb thing took off so fast that it looked like a pennant. Like a pennant flag.
Sure, yep. Streaks, yep.
And it went straight up into the sky, and it stopped. And then all of a sudden from across the east, came another same color, like an orange color, and it comes up to the first one, and they do like a tandem half a arc, and then they take off slowly and then gone.
Wow.
Like you couldn't believe.
That's
cool. That was my, like, as I look back at it, and I continuously do, the biggest thing that I always recall is that the moment the fear came over me, it was like whatever was in this thing sensed that fear and that was the last thing it intended.
Oh.
But the fact that I was open and welcoming to it was my assumption now. That is why it was coming closer.
That's really cool. You know, we had a guest on. His name is Duncan Campbell, and I don't know if you've caught those shows when he's on, but he's a gentleman out of UK. Really great guy and very interesting. And he's talked about that kind of thing. And he says that that it's possible to have psychic communication with them. In other words, that if they're out there, you can call to them psychically, and they may show up. So that's very possible.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say that goes very much with what you're saying as well. That they were reading your state just from that far away.
Well, even just think about it when you have your partner and when you're with an individual after a certain time, in our brain, in our synapses, we have neurotransmitters and receivers, and these are basic radios, and they're sending frequency or energy or fields, and so we become attuned with our partners, where we tune into each other, and sometimes we finish each other's thoughts, or we can answer the phone and know it's them before we even look at caller ID.
Sure.
And that's just us silly miracle humane beings. So the speculation of them having the ability to tap into us a little bit better is, to me, it
goes without
rather,
saying, yeah. And that's a good point, because if you look at what is emotion, it's an energetic reaction. So, I mean, if these things are truly masters of energy, especially in comparison to us, then, why couldn't they just read our thoughts? Because they are just simply electrical impulses within our heads. Now, are they more than that? Yeah, I think they exist also in the metaphysical realm, or the spiritual realm, but they are also realized within our cerebral cortex as neurons firing. So perhaps, the whole idea of telepathy is not that far-fetched then, when you think it's an electrical signal.
Do you remember the progression of the Transformers? When the Transformers, all of a sudden they went into Beast Wars.
Oh yeah,
and then after,
vaguely,
right?
Yeah.
And then after Beast Wars, they went into Beast Machines.
Okay.
And in Beast Machines is when Transformers finally got back to their home world, but they were in an organic form. And the home world was all computerized, more or less, robotic. And the whole premise of the movie or the series is the robotic got so far from humanity that it had to find its organic and its roots. And this is kind of like like you guys and Brooks were talking about with science and science in the church. The same goes with nature and technology. If you look at the golden mean spiral, and then you look at the Fibonacci sequence and how they're one and the same metaphorically, but they're totally different.
Right.
And it's that constant from one spectrum to the other with the oscillation and trying to find that middle ground. And maybe, like you said earlier, it's going to take something like the mothership coming down,
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that I've been conditioned to be the spokesperson for the universe or for Earth, because now that I'm blind, if it's a really, really scary entity, I'd be willing to go talk to it because it wouldn't scare me.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You'd never be shocked by the physical.
Right.
Good point. That I nominate you as well. So
Yeah,
I'll second that motion.
Well, geez, maybe I should roll for senator or something then.
You should roll.
We can call it the blind leading the blind campaign.
Oh,
yeah.
Goodness.
That's awesome. Absolutely awesome.
And I wouldn't be afraid to be one of those senators that come straight out and said, yeah, I've seen some interesting things.
Well, brother, how can people stay in touch with you? You just got a couple minutes left here, so.
Well, you know how to whistle, right?
Okay, how can they stay in touch with you online?
You can find me on YouTube at The Megaphone Man or Cannabis Res Solution.
Okay.
Or Hilarious Nese.
Okay.
High Hilarious Nese. Nese.
Okay. Perfect.
I'm usually putting up YouTube videos there, and also, geez, Phoenix Rising Radio
Oh, yeah,
here
yeah.
on Truth Frequency Network.
There you go,
Tuesdays
brother.
and Thursdays, 6 to 8 Central Standard Time.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. He's also a co-host as well. So thank you for being on the show, brother. We really appreciate your time and for you staying up late with us.
Thank you, sir. I love you, my brother.
I love you too, man. Thanks a bunch for being here. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for being here. And if you're listening on TFR, iHeart, TuneIn, TalkStream, etc., stay tuned for Into the Microcosm with Jimmy Jean coming up next. But that wraps it up for us.
Too, Donnie.
See you, Nese.
Don loves you too. All right, everybody, we love you. Good night. Have a great evening. Take care, and we'll see you on Wednesday night here on the portal.